Welcome back to MVM, the show where we talk about all things board game related. I'm Ryan, and today I'm bringing you a preview of upcoming game Off-World: Building Better Colonies from Post-Industrial Games. Off-World can be played from 2 to 4 players, with each player taking on the role of a corporation far in the distant future when we have left Earth and we are exploring the stars. The goal is to achieve the most amount of victory points by building colonies and completing both public and secret objectives. Every player is going to be given a corporation card, and this corporation is going to dictate not only their player color, but also give them a bonus objective. The game is a race to get to these victory points, and you can set the length to 6, 8, or 12 victory points depending on how long you want the game to go. Before we jump into the gameplay, let's take a look at the components. Now, I do want to say this is a Kickstarter prototype, so not all the components you see here are final, but I do believe that they are fairly close, especially when it comes to the minis and the graphic design and things like that. So if you take a look at the board, you'll see all of these hexagonal tiles. This is a game already in progress. In a normal game, you start only with one tile face up, and that is Soul. Everything else builds out around Soul. Every color has their own frigates, their own colonies, and their own garrison, which are troops that can be used to protect your colonies. You'll also see AMERO cards, which are very interesting. They come in denominations of 1, 2, and 5. On one side, you have the dollar value, and on the other side, you have an action you can take. So each one of these cards can be played as an action or spent as money to pay for other actions in the game. You'll also see there are some Earth events and some planetary events that can trigger during the game. And if you look at one of these exploration tiles, you'll notice an icon here that shows a resource that can be mined, and you'll see up to 4 spaces on which you can place your colonies. You'll place your colonies in level 1 and eventually possibly level them up to level 4. And that is one of the main ways you're going to score points, is by building these colonies across the board. When everyone sits down to play, you'll pass out the factions to every player. They'll take their colored pieces, and everyone will get one secret objective. This secret objective is held face down, and no one knows it but you. This is another way to score those victory points that I was talking about earlier. Like I said, it's a race game, so having this secret objective means no one is exactly aware of when you're going to end the game. This one, for example, scores me 4 victory points if I control 10 star systems, and automatic victory if I control 15 or more. So there are ways to break that race rule. I can just flip this over once I control 15 territories and say I've won the game. So everyone is going to get one of these cards. They're going to get their playmat, which gives a public objective that each faction needs to score points. They're going to take all their pieces, and they're going to take a certain amount of AMERO to set up and start the game. Once the game is set up, gameplay is fairly easy. The starting player will draw the top card of the Earth event pile, read off what happens, and then that event will affect the entire round. Once you've played that Earth event for the round, you actually take the deck and you pass it to the next player. So after you've taken your one action, the next player is going to go, and it's just going to keep cycling through that way until somebody reaches the allotted victory points. Now, a key part of this game is calling people out for committing illegal activities. Many of these action cards, as well as certain actions you can take on the board, are deemed illegal. And if somebody has a reveal crime card in their hand, even if the action is not being taken against them, they can reveal that card and hold the person accountable for their crimes, in which case the person has to pay reparations to the other player they committed crimes against. It's a very interesting system, and it kind of is a game of chicken a little bit. If you think somebody might have one of those reveal crime cards, maybe you don't want to take action against them, or maybe you want to try to draw that card out. It's definitely a huge element of this game. There are a few things you can do on your turn. First of all, you always get to move your frigate for free. You can take your frigate and you can move up to 3 spaces. Now, these frigates have some importance in positioning. They can be used to block other players from exploring. They can also be used to attack other players' colonies. For example, in this instance, if I move my frigate here, I can choose to attack. I can destroy the garrison or even level down the colony. And you can move that frigate before or after taking your main action. The first action you can take is simple. It's called trade. You'll notice that these AMERO cards all have different values on them. And like I said before, they've got actions on one side and currency on the other. You can actually trade in these cards back to the bank. For example, I could take this 5 value AMERO and I can exchange it to the bank for 5 ones. Monetarily, it's the same, but I'm trading in 1 powerful card for 5 event cards that might not be as powerful, but that are going to give me more options that turn. You can also trade your AMERO and your colonies and your frigates with other players. So we can kind of make a deal across the table as an action. I can tell you, you know what, I'll give you that 5 AMERO card in my hand if you give me your colony, for example. Like we can trade things back and forth, in which case you take 1 colony off and replace it with another in that same exact spot. So it's an interesting mechanic. You can either trade to the bank or trade to players, but that does take up your action for the round, and then you'll pass on to the next player. Another action you can take on your turn is simply playing one of those action cards from your hand. This one, for example, destroys a colony somewhere on the board. Now, destroying a colony means that you lower it down by a level. So I could play this card, take this colony, and lower it from a level 2 down to a level 1. So there definitely is player versus player interaction in this game. It is heavy on that element. Like I said, it's a race game, so you're trying to stop other players from scoring victory points while also trying to maximize your victory points. If you see someone getting pretty far ahead, you're going to want to play action cards like that against them. Now, like I said earlier, some of these action cards are crimes, so you have to be very careful when you're playing these action cards out of your hand. The next thing you can do is spend money to build certain things on the board. If you don't already have a frigate, you can pay 5 AMERO and take your frigate and put them on the board. It starts in Sol. Now, you're only legally allowed to have 1 frigate in the game at a time. However, there is a card that lets you have an illegal frigate come into play. So if you look at this board here, you'll notice that blue has 2 frigates, which means at one point they did play that illegal card that allows them to get a second frigate into play. The next thing you could spend money on is upgrading your colonies. Now, you can take a colony and upgrade it as many times as you want, but you have to pay a cost according to the level. So it's 3 AMERO to get to level 3, 4 AMERO to get to level 4, or I can pay 7 and just jump all the way. Now, the reason you're going to want to upgrade multiple levels of your colony at once is because if someone moves their frigate in, they can only lower your colony down by 1 step. This way you can kind of keep up with that. One player can't just keep hammering at you and destroying your colony every time you get a chance to rebuild it. If you're looking at a explored space where the colony was previously destroyed, you could pay 1 and place a colony right on that unoccupied solar system. The third action you can take is the one that's going to get you the most victory points and drive the action of the game forward, and that is the explore action. When you explore, you point to a space on the board that is currently unexplored, and you count how many spaces away from Sol that location is. For example, if I wanted to explore out here on this outer ring, I'd count 1, 2, 3. 3 spaces away from Sol, it would cost me 3 AMERO to explore that space. However, if there is a dark matter in the way, or an opponent's ship is blocking it, you can't count through those spaces. So for example, in this instance, if I wanted to explore over here, and there's an enemy frigate here, and a dark matter here, I'd have no way of tracing a path back to that hex, and therefore I could not explore on that hex. However, let's say that I can. So what you do is you draw a card from the pile, or you can have an opaque bag that you draw from, because these are random. You reveal the tile, and you place it where you were exploring, and then you can immediately place one of your colonies for free in the level 1 spot. So also, when you play a system like this that has the little red icon, you're going to draw the top card of the planet event deck, and a certain event is going to come into play. Now, these events might have you add tokens to the board. They might have you interact with that system in a specific way. They might even have ongoing effects that take place in that planet, like making your colonies more expensive to upgrade every time you do the upgrade action. So those are all the things you can spend your money on. But sometimes you're going to need to generate money. So you can actually spend your entire turn to generate income. You're going to generate 2 AMERO for Sol, and then you're going to mine resources. When you mine, you look at the number of resource icons printed on the board, and you will generate that much AMERO. Now, the actual color of these symbols doesn't matter for collecting income, but it does matter for certain objectives and other cards that might affect systems that have those resources printed on them. So those are the actions in the game. And like I said, you get to take one of these actions a turn plus move. So you have to decide carefully what you want to do in your turn. Maybe you want to play cards to add garrison units to the board to protect your colonies. Maybe you want to upgrade your colonies in case enemy frigates are going to come into play. Maybe you need to do the trade. Maybe you need to generate the income. You're going to have to make the decision based on what's best for you right now. Because as you look around the table, you have to realize that everyone else at the table is kind of plotting against you. Everyone is trying to win by scoring the most victory points, but if you are in the lead, then they're going to make it their priority to bring you down. So you're moving your frigates around, which will let you pick up garrison units and carry them with you. You're building those colonies, you're playing these cards. It can get kind of chaotic. Try to plan ahead and to figure out what everyone else is doing is almost impossible. You just kind of have to hedge your bets and hope that maybe nobody notices that secret little thing you're trying to do to complete your objective. And also, everyone's corporation objective is public. So you know at any time what other players at the table are trying to do, so you can try to block them from being able to complete that goal. So that is a brief overview of Off-World, Building Better Colonies. Now, like I said earlier, this is a race game. The race ends as soon as someone hits those victory points or plays one of those instant victory condition cards from in front of them. There is no player elimination in this game. You don't need your frigate on the board. You don't need any colonies on the board to be able to participate in things. And you can always come back in and build new frigates and build new colonies no matter what your board state looks like, which is something I personally like about this. I don't love player elimination too much. So take a look at this game. It's on Kickstarter right now. You can leave some comments down below. I will do my best to answer all of them. Otherwise, take a look at their page. Let me know what you think. And as always, please like us, subscribe to us, and follow us on Twitter. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.